Okay, so why don't we get started? And I'm very pleased to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Gonzalo Camarillo, and he will give us an outline of some of the work that the IOWN Global Forum is doing. So thank you, Dr. Gonzalo. Where are you? Here.
Thank you, Vito. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Vito. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the introduction. And I guess people will eventually come in and come back from the break and probably they're seeing the demos and very exciting. Okay, so as Vito mentioned, I'm here to present the forum. And today I would like to answer 5 questions, the 5 W questions, right? So it's why the forum, what we are doing, how we do it, who we are, and where we are right now. So 5 questions, and I will go one by one so that we get good answers and people understand all the context around the forum. So starting, let's see if the clicker works. Okay. Starting with why this forum? So the idea is we are building the communication network of the future, the communication infrastructure of the future. The idea is to have a societal impact, as displayed on the slide. So we are not about writing specs, we are not about building prototypes. The whole point is way beyond that. So we don't stop at that. The idea is to have the societal impact that impacts basically works, lives, etc. So just keep in mind, the idea, it goes well beyond proof of concepts, it goes beyond any kind of paper-based specs. So it goes to, what is next? Deploying our actual infrastructure out there and impacting lives. So the why is quite clear, quite ambitious, inspirational, and it's based, of course, of the work of Kawasoe-san and the rest of the founders when they were founding the forum. That's kind of purpose, mission, and vision level thinking. That's the why. What are we doing? As I said, we are building the communication infrastructure of the future. And if we go there, as Kawasoe-san was showing before, the infrastructure of the future, the communication infrastructure, will be based in optics. So we are all about using optical technologies to do that. And it has 3 main properties. As Kawasoe-san mentioned before, 3 pillars. And they are low power consumption, high transmission capacity, and low end-to-end latency. Those are the intrinsic properties of using optical technologies. And then the whole point is to apply those properties into different use cases. So what are we doing? We saw why, what, build an infrastructure of the future with these 3 properties. How we do it? The way we do it is defining use cases. And again, the idea is those 3 properties is not trivial to apply them to a use case and take advantage of them. You will basically take some advantage of them, but not full advantage. So the idea is to try to apply optical technologies to several use cases and take full advantage of them. The use cases that we have, they are what we so-called early adoption use cases. I will tackle them later. And this is basically where the focus is, defining all the requirements. So the how, moving into the how we do it, we define the use cases. The use cases, they basically imply a set of requirements. And the requirements, when we have those requirements, we use them to build the technical specifications. So we basically build the technical specifications based on those requirements that meet the use case. Once we have that, we build proof of concept prototypes, and we were talking in the panel before about proof of concepts, how useful they are. And then once we understand how the technology works and we prove that it works, we iterate. So it's an iterative process that goes back and defines again the requirements, the use case, the technology, to make sure that we have a solid use case. Once we have done that, as it was also discussed in the panel before, that's not the end game. The end game is basically to get to deployments, as I said before. So we do also proof of value and proof of business. Proof of value means the use case usually defines a set of stakeholders, and each of the stakeholders takes some type of value. So the proof of value is a study to make sure that what we defined and what we envision in the use case, it will be actually producing the planned value. Once we know that, proof of business, we go into it produces that value at what price point. Because depending on the price level, it would make sense or it wouldn't make sense to deploy the technology. So we need to understand that it will be economically viable. When we define all that, then of course, the distinction between work carried out outside the forum, which is, you will see early commercial deployments, RFIs, RFQs, etc., which will end up in commercial deployments, which is what we want. Then that's kind of the life cycle of the technology. So the how in the forum, as you can see, is actually quite important. In my view, is one of the unique strengths of the forum. And we've been actually refining these ways of working for the last 5 years, the lifetime of the forum, until we have gotten here. So the process we have, this life cycle, together with the governance of the forum, I think is key to understand how we work and how we plan to get there to our purpose and mission. Having said that, we have answered why, what, and how. Now we say who. Who are we? Who is the forum? So the forum now, Kawasoe-san mentioned that we have a lot of members. We have at this point 173 members and growing. And the idea is that we need members to work on the life cycle that I described before. So we need user companies, as we call them, that they will be helping us define the use cases. We need companies that they would define the architecture, the technologies, etc. So within a use case, we will have all the end-to-end roles in the use case, from operators, even basically academic institutions doing research, equipment vendors, etc., covering the end-to-end of a use case. Of course, different use cases, they will apply to different industries, so you not only need all these roles within a given industry segment, you need also members from different industries. So that's another dimension of diversity where our membership basically brings this life cycle into life, and it makes it possible to implement it. And finally, of course, different use cases, they may work in a region, but they may not work in another region. So we cover also market areas. That's kind of the third dimension of our diversity, which help us define the use cases so that basically, at the end of the day, they go worldwide and they can be deployed in all the regions. So again, who we are, 173 members, different industries, different market areas, different market segments, covering different roles. And one question we always get is that the forum actually originated in Japan, as you know, and so we always get, how many non-Japanese members you have. So now we are actually up to 40% of non-Japanese members, which means that we are actually becoming an actual global forum with members coming from, all around the world, including, of course, Europe, North America, and other regions. I think that's actually quite important. Then before I go into the organizational structure, we can cover that. Also regarding who we are is how we are structured, right? And we are structured, we have it there on the slide, with 3 steering committees. I myself am chairing the marketing steering committee. And if you see, they mirror the life cycle that I described before, right? We have the vision steering committee, including use cases, so they start working on new use cases, and they actually understand, what will be working first with the requirements. Then we have the technology steering committee, which includes basically all the technology development, etc. And the market steering committee, in addition to handling things like internal communications or organizing meetings like this one, we are actually, building the narratives and trying to communicate what we are doing in the forum so that, external members, they may want to join, they got clear information on what we are doing and our mission, vision, and purpose. So having said that, I have answered already 4 of the questions that we had in front of us. And the 5th question is, where are we? And I think that's important because basically it's like a status update of where we are. We do this every year when we have, or actually twice a year when we have these type of meetings, and I think it's important to understand, the current status. So the current status is that we've been working on 3 what we call early adoption use cases. It was, remote media production, remote GPUs, so related to AI, and connecting financial institutions. And those 3 use cases, we have gone through the life cycle of, as I said, defining the technologies, use cases, requirements, etc., up to the point of having the proof of concept, proving the technology. And now we are actually going through the proof of value and proof of business exercises. So very soon we expect to have proven that, the use cases, those 3 cases that we talked about, and we've been working on quite a lot, they actually produce and deliver what we intended them to deliver. Once we have that, then we will, of course, be reporting back to the community and understanding next steps and going into commercial deployments, of course. In addition to that, we are thinking of adding 2 more use cases. One is about remote tunnel construction, and that one we are studying it, how to tackle that. And the 5th one, let's say, the second additional use case would be on central management for distributed warehouses, where you have a set of, for example, robots in the warehouses, and you have to coordinate everything. So you could do that from a central point of view, and that basically gives you performance advantages and certain synergies. As you can see, as I said before, applying the good properties of optical networking to different use cases, it can vary. Some use cases are about centralizing, like the one I just mentioned. Others are about distributing. So that's why you actually need to work on a particular use case in order to understand, how to provide the value. So those are the use cases. But in addition to that, how is the external perception of the forum and how we are doing out there? And I think this relates completely to the first part of the session that Vito was presenting, and we had the keynotes and the panel, because now we have this tailwind that is basically the data centers that they are not scaling up because, as discussed before extensively, mostly because of power constraints, right? They cannot grow a single data center because you cannot basically deliver more power to the data center. Ideally, you would need to continue growing your capacity, so what you do is, of course, distributing the data center, and you connect the different sub-data centers, the neoclouds providers, as Kawasoe-san presented this morning. They are doing this. You will basically use optical technologies between them. So we actually were thinking of connecting data centers and doing things like that in the past, and now with these new use cases that they are getting a lot of attention, the relevancy of the forum is even increasing more. So we are getting more and more attention into the technologies we are developing and how we can help overcome those obstacles that, again, they were discussed extensively in the keynote and the panel, so I'm not going to go over them again. So that's the 5 questions I wanted to answer. Again, why society impact, what we have basically optical technologies building the infrastructure of the future, communication infrastructure of the future, how we have the life cycles, which is the strength of this forum, the governance, and how we work from use cases to early deployments, and then who we are, 173 members, very diverse and growing, and where we are having tailwind with the new use cases from AI that we are seeing. That's why AI is actually the main theme of this whole meeting, and the status of the 3 early adoption use cases plus the 2 additional ones. That's what I wanted to present. If you have doubts or questions, follow-ups, we have basically a set of published resources and links, web pages, conferences where we are. We will be publishing the slides. Otherwise, feel free to reach out and ask questions. We will be happy to answer. Thank you very much.